If you ain't been around, well, you ain't been around. Even seasoned sailors can wind up on the reef.
And that's just what our next guest is going to tell us about. Coming on board Nautical Talk Radio is Maryanne Webb, who's sailed across the Atlantic with her husband Kyle, but even with all their experience and knowledge, Mother Nature played a mean trick on them. Maryanne, tell me some of the places you've been to.
Oh my goodness, we have had the most amazing adventure. We haven't managed to circumnavigate yet, but it's certainly our life's dream to finish that job off. To date, we've spent time in the northeast of the U.S., in the beautiful Maine and Massachusetts. We've spent time in Virginia and the Chesapeake Bay. We've crossed the Atlantic. We've been to the Caribbean, to the beautiful Bermuda. We've been to places a little bit more obscure like Norway and sailed through fjords. We've been to Greek islands. We've sailed into Santorini and to Turkey and just some amazing places. We've met some wonderful people on the way and we're really loving life.
Tell me about the boat.
Well, when Carl and I met, he'd kind of learned to sail in the last few years and I was trying to learn to sail. We started off with a little monohull, a little 25-foot monohull, and the last boat that we've had is Footprint, a little catamaran, a 33-foot Gemini 105 catamaran, and it gave us the most beautiful chance to travel a little further afield and live in a little bit of luxury while we're doing it.
Now, how did you finance these trips?
Oh, my goodness. Well, both of us work pretty hard when we have to. When we decided to travel, we were able for my husband to retain his job and commute back and forth. And I worked as hard as I could to put money in the bank. And then once we actually started traveling further afield than odd weekend and week trips, I stopped working and became the boat wife, so to speak. So I did all the chores while my husband was away at work, did all the boat maintenance, the engine oil changes, the grocery shopping, the laundry, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And when he finally made it home to the boat, off we'd go on another adventure again.
Well, what kind of jobs did you have?
I work in computing, which is a wonderful career to pick up and drop off as you move around. And my husband is an airline pilot, which really made this whole thing doable for us because he could commute fairly inexpensively from some pretty far-flung places and still make it to work in time.
So I guess that makes him a pretty good navigator as well, being an airplane pilot.
Yeah, and he loves all that kind of stuff, the radar and the weather reports and everything else. That's his job.
Was it just the two of you, or did you have friends or pets on board?
Yeah, we are both huge pet lovers, but unfortunately traveling in between countries really puts a damper on that kind of thing. And we knew we were going to go to the UK, where there's some pretty strict quarantine rules. We're big romantics. We kind of like having the boat to ourselves. We've had a few visitors aboard, but rarely, and generally as a rule we just travel and sail, two of us, including our Atlantic crossing was just the two of us.
Where were you originally from?
Well, I'm English, as you can probably tell from the accent. My husband is American, and we actually met on Match.com while I was living in Scotland and he was living in Ohio. Decided that I would move to the US, we'd settle down here, and then we started planning this big adventure so we could travel around. Both of us are feeling pretty nomadic.
Without putting you on the spot, are you and your husband in your 30s, 40s, 50s?
Oh, right, yeah, mid-40s.
Did you meet other people your age at different ports when you were sailing?
We certainly did, although it was rarer. Most people don't get to have this opportunity until they retire. And a little bit older. There's a lot of single guys out there or bunches of guys with their friends out sailing for the odd week trips and stuff like that. But most people that sail long-term are older couples and the occasional family with young children. So very brave people.
Did you have any weapons on board?
You know, that's something. I'm English. We grew up. Weapons were for the bad guys, and there was never any expectation that I would want them. I was trained a little bit in the military in the US, so I'm comfortable with guns, but I would not feel comfortable having one aboard. I personally feel it would just escalate a situation, and I just didn't want to be in that position. Plus, there's all sorts of legal issues as you enter and leave countries.
How did you communicate with your friends and family?
You know, communications was one of the things we spent the most time researching, and whatever you learn in one place doesn't work in the next place. So when we were far away from civilization, we had a satellite day, and downloading weather reports and important things like that, but we don't use it for chatting and surfing. When we get into harbour or closer to civilization, we have a pretty powerful Wi-Fi antenna to try and locate area Wi-Fi so we can hook into. We often take the computer ashore and find a cafe or something where we can use the Wi-Fi. So a number of different methods.
I'm speaking with Maryanne Webb, and Maryanne Webb has done extensive sailing across the Atlantic. And what was the longest period that you were at sea?
Yeah, the longest passage we have made to date was between Bermuda and Ireland, and that passage we had planned 4 to 6 weeks, but the wind was very much stronger than we expected and just in a perfect direction, so we actually sailed 25 days, I think it took us. To be fair, it was 25 miserable, cold, hard work days. But we were glad for that one to be over, and that's the first time I've ever felt like I was ready to get off the boat, and we checked into a B&B straight away.
Well, this past fall, in October, you had a bad experience. You were in Italy.
Yeah, we did. We were making the passage back from Turkey. We were heading towards Rome, where we were planning to spend the winter. We were slowly crawling up the west coast of Italy. The forecast was pretty bad for some storms coming, and we headed for a harbour that we'd planned for the evening. When we got to the harbour, it was full. There was nowhere to anchor. There was a couple of spots. We tried, and unfortunately, the anchor just would not hold. By now, it was getting dark. We needed to make sure we secured ourselves somewhere. So we picked what looked like a reasonably protected cove. We anchored. We put out all of our scope. We have lots of chain and lots of heavy anchor and all that kind of stuff. We did all the things that we would normally do to protect ourselves. That wind picked up, though, and unfortunately turned. We found ourselves on the wrong side of it, and we were busy trying to work out what should we do. Should we try and leave? What's the best option? And really, leaving didn't seem like a good option. Trying to hoist that anchor chain in during those conditions didn't seem very pleasant either. All of a sudden, we found ourselves unanchored. The anchor had been pulled out of the seabed. Once we realized we were moving, my husband rushed out and didn't even manage to get the engine started before we were on the shore. We were basically ashore within seconds. There was no way we'd be able to move the boat during the dark safely. We decided we'd just kind of wait until the morning and see what damage there might be and see what we could do about getting the boat back into the water. We called the Coast Guard to say we were ashore, but we were secure and safe. And the Coast Guard and locals and all sorts came to the beach to try and assist us. So we were feeling pretty comfortable that we'd be okay until the morning, and it didn't work out like that.
What happened?
The boat found the few rocks that were on the beach overnight as it moved around. I mean, we'd secured the boat as best we could, put out lines and everything else. The Coast Guard insisted that we leave the boat. We weren't allowed to stay and tend to it overnight. So by the time we came back to it in the morning, it had moved a little, and rocks on the beach burst through the hull. So it was pretty depressing. Our whole dreams kind of collapsing in a night.
Was the boat salvageable?
We thought quite possibly it just needed patching up and it would be fine. Unfortunately, any boat maintenance in Italy is terribly expensive. Plus, the place that we'd gone aground, didn't really have suitable boat facilities. So as soon as we got our boat insurance company involved, they warned us very early on the boat was probably going to be declared a total wreck, which shook us even more. So the rest of the stay there was really spent kind of salvaging what we could and trying to work out how we would get ourselves and what possessions we'd managed to save back to a new home, which we had to find.
So where was the boat when you last saw it? Was it left on the beach?
We actually assisted with the salvage operation to get it back onto shore. The insurance company did a deal with the salvage company where the salvage company basically took ownership of the boat. So by the time we left, the boat was removed from the beach and hauled out ashore on a yard with a crane, but no other facilities. experiences.
So are you planning on getting another boat?
Oh, absolutely are. It feels like it's in our blood now. We're definitely nomadics. We don't really like to be settled down in one place too long. We've tried it a few times. It doesn't really work for us. We've got itchy feet, and the boat life really suits us. You know, you can have privacy when you want. You can find yourself in the middle of as much activity as you want. You know, we've sailed into Monaco and gone to the casino, and we've found ourselves in little harbours with nobody to see for weeks, and enjoyed both experiences. And there's not many other places you can do that. You can check into a hotel, but there's always going to be somebody else there. This is privacy when you want it, and total adventure and chaos when you want it too.
When do you think you'll have your new boat?
And my husband right now is in the Bahamas inspecting a boat for us as a maybe possible. So we're getting excited again and crossing our fingers.
What size boat are you looking for?
We're looking for a catamaran in the high 30s, maybe.
Do you have a website or any information about the logs you've kept?
Yes, absolutely. We've kept a blog. I mean, initially we set it up for our family so that they could follow on our travels, but we seem to have acquired a few strangers that follow us along as well, and it's been wonderful. So the blog that we keep is called SV, for sailing vessel, sv-footprint.blogspot.com.
Say it again, Maryanne.
SV for sailing vessel, sv-footprint.blogspot.com. blogspot.com.
All right. Maryanne, I look forward to talking to you again, hearing more of your stories and more of your adventures.
Bye, thank you. Bye, Captain Lou.
Bye-bye.